In the aftermath of the tragic events in the Middle East and the loss of numerous military personnel, the United States military holds a high-profile press conference at the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense in Washington, D.C. Assembled before a crowd of journalists, top military officials deliver a powerful message, vowing to bring to justice the Iranian factions and individuals responsible for the murders of Iranian civilians and the fallen U.S. and NATO military personnel. During the press conference, military officials field questions from the assembled media, providing details on their plans to track down and apprehend the perpetrators. They also emphasize the importance of international cooperation in this mission. The officials outline their strategy, which includes close collaboration with intelligence agencies, NATO partners, and regional allies to gather information, identify the individuals and groups involved, and apprehend them through a combination of diplomatic and law enforcement efforts. They also underscore their commitment to working with the United Nations and other international organizations to ensure that the pursuit of justice adheres to international laws and human rights standards. As the press conference comes to a close, the military officials express their deep condolences to the families of the fallen and the Iranian people. They reiterate their determination to bring the perpetrators to justice, not only as a matter of principle, but also as a tribute to the memory of those who lost their lives in this tragic conflict. Want to see more? You can now binge-watch all episodes of our series on our website. Get started today and explore the potential of the next World War. As the United States and NATO strive to seek justice for the casualties in the Middle East, they are forced to pivot their attention back to the ongoing, yet separate conflicts with Russia and China. Military leaders gather to assess the current state of affairs and plan their next moves, keenly aware of the delicate balance required to address multiple conflicts simultaneously. However, as they refocus their efforts, they are met with a sobering realization. Their military forces in both regions have suffered massive casualties and losses as well. The conflict with Iran and its aftermath had stretched their resources thin, and the situation in both the European and Asia-Pacific theaters has deteriorated significantly. It becomes evident that both Russia and China had capitalized on the US and NATO's preoccupation in the Middle East to advance their own strategic interests, further destabilizing the global balance of power. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, US and NATO military leaders urgently call for reinforcements and additional resources to bolster their beleaguered forces. In response, member nations rally to provide support, sending troops and military assets to the front lines. The global community watches with bated breath as tensions escalate and the risk of a larger confrontation looms. In parallel to their military efforts, the United States and NATO also engage in diplomatic talks with Russia and China, hoping to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the conflicts and prevent further bloodshed. Meanwhile, across the globe, citizens take to the streets, urging their governments to pursue diplomacy and find a peaceful way forward. The world is acutely aware that the consequences of failure could be catastrophic. As the situation remains volatile, the US, NATO, Russia, and China face a crucial moment in history. The decisions made by their leaders will shape the course of events for years to come and determine whether the world can find a path towards peace or descend further into chaos and conflict. While the United States and NATO were preoccupied with the tumultuous situation in the Middle East, China and Russia seized the opportunity to advance their own strategic agendas, capitalizing on the distraction to make significant inroads in their respective regions. China has made substantial territorial gains in Taiwan, with its military forces swiftly establishing control over key strategic areas. Caught off guard by the rapid Chinese advance, Taiwan's defense forces find themselves struggling to hold their ground and counter the offensive. As the conflict escalates, thousands of Taiwanese citizens are forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries. Their displacement adds to the mounting humanitarian crisis in the region and sparks concern for the long-term impact on Taiwan and its people. Meanwhile, Russia has made a bold and calculated move, advancing its military presence west of Ukraine and capturing large portions of Central Europe. This aggressive expansion raises alarm bells among NATO member states, who fear further incursions into their own territories and the potential destabilization of the region. In response, European leaders scramble to devise a coordinated plan of action, convening emergency meetings to address the Russian advance. They recognize the urgent need to act quickly and decisively to prevent further destabilization of the continent and to safeguard their nations. As the Russian military continues its westward march, the citizens of the affected countries take to the streets to voice their opposition to the occupation. Tensions run high, and clashes between protesters and Russian forces become increasingly common, further escalating the situation. As military analysts assess the strategic implications of these territorial gains, they conclude that both China and Russia have significantly strengthened their positions. This poses a grave threat to global security and stability, raising the stakes for the international community. Faced with this new reality, the United States and NATO are forced to confront the consequences of their diverted focus. They must now develop a comprehensive strategy to address the growing power of China and Russia, all while grappling with the aftermath of the Middle East conflict. In response to the crisis, NATO forces intensify their military exercises and readiness, sending a clear message to both China and Russia that they will not stand idly by as the balance of power is threatened. Simultaneously, diplomatic channels are opened in an attempt to de-escalate the situation and find a peaceful resolution to the conflicts. The outcome of these talks will be critical in determining the future of global relations and whether the world can step back from the brink of all-out war. As the United States, NATO, China, and Russia continue to maneuver on the global stage, the stakes have never been higher. The world watches anxiously, hoping that diplomacy, cooperation, and cooler heads will prevail in the face of these unprecedented challenges. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay informed about the latest World War III worst-case scenario episodes. Thank you for watching. To stay up to date with our latest releases, all you've got to do is follow us across our various social media platforms. We're talking Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, we're there. Thank you for watching our channel. There's a whole lot more where that came from. Interested in binge-watching all episodes today? Head over to our website to access our entire media library using the URL link in the description. Ready to test your World War II knowledge? Which international organization was devoted to worldwide peace and security? Provide your answer or response in the YouTube comment box below. Stay tuned for the right answer. The answer is, after the war, the United Nations was created. As civilians in both China and Russia rise up, taking up arms to fight alongside their national militaries, what drives these ordinary citizens to participate in the escalating conflicts? And what impact will their involvement have on the already tense global situation? As the conflicts in Taiwan and Central Europe continue to intensify, an unexpected phenomenon emerges. Civilians in both China and Russia, driven by a combination of nationalism, loyalty, and fear for their own safety, begin to pick up weapons and join the fray. In Taiwan, Chinese citizens from various walks of life rally to support their military's efforts to control the island. The lines between civilian and soldier become increasingly blurred as these volunteers aid in the advance of the Chinese forces. Meanwhile, in Central Europe, Russian civilians take up arms to fight alongside their military compatriots. They see the Russian advance as an opportunity to protect their homeland from perceived Western aggression and to restore the nation's historical influence in the region. When interviewed, many of these civilian fighters cite a deep sense of patriotism and duty as their primary motivations for joining the conflict. They believe that their actions are necessary to safeguard their country's interests and to ensure their people's survival. The involvement of civilian fighters in both conflicts poses new challenges for NATO forces. They must now grapple with the difficult task of distinguishing between combatants and non-combatants, making their missions even more complex and dangerous. The rise of civilian fighters in China and Russia draws international condemnation, with human rights organizations expressing grave concern for the safety of these individuals and the potential for increased civilian casualties. They urge all parties to adhere to the rules of armed conflict and to prioritize the protection of innocent lives. As civilians in both countries continue to join the battles in Taiwan and Central Europe, the potential consequences for global stability become increasingly dire. With the world already teetering on the brink of a broader conflict, their involvement adds yet another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile situation. South Korea's military suddenly decides to withdraw from the region and return home. Amid escalating tensions between the US, NATO, China, Iran, and Russia, South Korea prioritizes defending its nation. As tensions escalate between the United States, NATO, China, Iran, and Russia, the South Korean military, a key regional ally, faces a difficult choice. With the situation growing increasingly unstable, South Korean leaders make the decision to prioritize the defense of their own nation. South Korean military personnel hastily prepare for withdrawal, reflecting concerns about potential security threats. South Korean officials cite the need to defend their homeland, especially given growing tensions with North Korea. North Korea responds to the withdrawal with increased military activity along the border, possibly seeking to exploit the situation. South Korea's withdrawal concerns regional allies who fear for their own security and reassess their strategies in light of the reduced South Korean presence. The US and NATO, already dealing with conflicts involving China, Iran, and Russia, face the unexpected withdrawal of a key ally. This development prompts them to reevaluate their military commitments and the overall balance of power. As South Korea's military withdraws to defend its homeland, the decision's impact reverberates globally, adding complexity to an already precarious situation. Military intelligence and satellite images reveal a significant buildup of artillery along the South Korea-North Korea border. This development raises concerns about a possible escalation of hostilities between the two nations. As tensions between the two Koreas increase, the world watches with bated breath, fearing that any miscalculation or provocation could lead to a devastating conflict on the Korean peninsula. Diplomatic efforts are ramped up, with international leaders urging both North and South Korea to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue to prevent further escalation. With the situation on the Korean peninsula becoming more precarious by the day, the world must now confront yet another potential crisis. Want to see more? You can now binge watch all episodes of our series on our website. Get started today and explore the potential of the next world war. Arm yourself with the power of advanced AI for video creation, high-quality copy generation, a diverse range of freelance services, top-notch hosting options, and the ultimate online privacy protection. Don't miss out on exclusive discounts and promotions. Sign up today by clicking on the links in the description. Your journey towards creating compelling content starts now.